everyone, this is Joe Tortonesi coming to you. Welcome to my show. This is Joe's Drum Shop. We're on episode 3 right now. The last couple of episodes we were talking about music first of all, kind of learning the drum set, the different parts of the drum set, the cymbals, and of course the drums. And then we started to kind of work with the music and kind of learn what a quarter note is, what a half note is, and so on. Now, the last episode that we just got done doing, I was starting to play actual rock patterns. So now once you learn how to play rock patterns, the next step is to add crash cymbals, and that's what we're going to be doing on this next part right here coming up. Now, I'm on lesson 7, and we're at page 22. The exercise is called number 40, Crash This. So let me explain a little bit what's going to happen. So we're going to play a crash cymbal on 1, and then I'm not going to hit the ride cymbal until beat 2. So I actually have to let the crash ring out a little bit, and then we're going to go right to the ride cymbal and the pattern will start off, okay? So let's see what this sounds like. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and. All right, so that's how that sounds. And sometimes you want the crash cymbal to just ring out as you're getting ready to play the pattern. So that is needed sometimes. Now, the other example of this is on number 41. We're still on page 22. It's called Smash and Crash. This time, we're going to crash on 1, but the and will start the ride cymbal. So we're going to go crash and 2. So let's play this. So it's ride cymbal, snare drum, and bass drum. And I'm going to play this, and we'll get it started right on the and. So here we go. 1, 2, ready, go, and 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 1, 2, 3 and 4, and 1 and 2, and 3 and 4, 1 and 2, and 3 and 4, 1 and 2, and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 1 and 2, and 3 and 4, 1 and 2, and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and crash. All right. So that is a good start on how crash cymbals work. Again, you use them to accent certain parts of the song, and that's what drummers do, to give it that extra little bit of accented note and to make it a little bit more exciting and adventurous, okay? All right, the next step. Well, now we're on page 23. We're going to be talking about 16th notes. Now, 16th notes we haven't talked about yet. We've talked about whole notes, we've talked about half notes, quarter notes, and eighth notes. 16ths are the next speed up from there, so they're actually double the speed of eighth notes. So every time you play 1 eighth note, 2 16ths can play in the place of it. It takes up the same amount of time. So that's how we're going to do this. Now, it actually explains in the box here, it's got like a note tree, and it shows you the whole note at the top, 2 half notes, 4 quarter notes, 8 eighth notes, and then 16 16th notes. So if we break the 16th notes up, we end up with 4 16ths for each beat. So you're going to have 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. That's how we're going to count them. Every note has to get a count. Now, how we're going to start this is I'm going to play 16th notes on the ride cymbal. We'll play the snare and the bass. And we're going to play the 4 16th notes per each bass drum and snare drum as we go. So let's hear what this sounds like. This is number 42. It's called Going on 16. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and 3 E and a, 4 E and a crash. All right, as you can see, it's pretty interesting, and it gives a little bit different flavor as of just the note, playing notes on the hi-hat like eighth notes. Because after a while, sometimes you're going to need to play faster notes, and it makes it a lot more interesting. All right, the last exercise on page 23 is called 43 alternating hands. And this one means that we're going to play the hi-hat this time. Now, the last, couple of patterns that we played before on the last episode, we played just the right hand on the hi-hat. Now we're going to be playing two. So what this entails is that when I have to hit the snare drum, I'm going to start with my right, left, and go opposite each other, always playing right, left. But when I come to the snare drum on beat 2 and 4, the right stick's going to come over here and play beat 2 and beat 4. So as I'm playing, it's going to go 1 E and a 2. And then when I get done, as soon as I hit the snare drum, E comes back on the left, and then the and then the whole thing starts over again. So that's how it's going to work. Now, let's play it, and let's start it. Here's what it sounds like. So 43, this is called alternating hands. 1, 2, ready, go, and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and 3 E and a 4 E and a crash. All right, so as you can see, when you need to play faster, and it's at the point where you can't play any more 16th notes faster with one hand, you're going to definitely need two hands, and that's why we need to do this. One of the greatest drummers of all time, Neil Peart from Rush, played a lot of this stuff, and he either played sometimes on the hi-hat, or he played between the ride cymbal and the hi-hat, which is really cool. There's a song called Subdivisions by Rush. If you ever guys want to check that out, it's a great song, and you'll hear the difference. He'll be playing the ride cymbal and the hi-hat between 16th notes while the snare's still going. It's amazing, and it's a very intricate little pattern. It's not for the faint of heart, okay? So I just want you guys to understand there's a lot of different ways to play the notes. You can play them with one hand, two hands, and so forth. Okay, we're going to go on to the next page, and we're looking at now the 16th notes that we're going to play. We're going to put them with the bass drum, okay? So the bass drum will be playing different 8th notes and 16ths, but the ride cymbal will be playing straight 16th notes all the way through. So that means you're either going to play with the bass drum with the ride cymbal, or the bass will play by itself, depending on where we're at in the music, okay? So let's start this off. Here's the bass drum, and again, don't forget, every time you play, if there's a bass drum there, the ride cymbal hit the bass drum together, the ride cymbal and the bass drum hit together. But if it's just the ride cymbal, it's going to hit just by itself with the ride, no bass. So let's take it nice and slow. I'll count it off. This is number 44, bass drum and ride. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a crash. All right, so that's the first exercise. Number 45, this is called snare drum and hi-hat. So now we're going to take these, what we just got done with the right hand and the right foot with the ride cymbal and the bass, we're going to play now with the right hand and the left hand with the snare drum and the hi-hat. So here's what this sounds like. So 1, 2, ready, go, and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a crash. Put the last bass drum in there. All right, now number 46. This is called bass 16ths. And now we're going to be playing 8 notes on the hi-hat, and all the 16ths and 8ths will be with the bass drum, okay? So here we go. Number 46. 1, 2, and 3, go. And 1, and 2, and 3 E and 4, and 1, and 2 E and 3, and 4 E and crash. All right. Now, we got the snare drum going with the ride cymbal, hi-hat going with the bass drum and the snare drum. Now we're going to put it all together, and we're going to play 16th notes on the ride cymbal, and then different 8th notes and 16ths with the bass and the snare. So here we go. Number 48, this is called Mix Up Number 1. 2, ready, go, and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a crash. All right. The next one, this is called Mix Up Number 2. This is number 49. It's the last exercise. And now we're going to be playing straight 8th notes on the ride cymbal still. We're going to be playing 16ths and 8th notes between snare and bass. So again, this is a little more, tricky, but again, do it slow. And if you make mistakes, don't forget, you can always play it over again and keep playing it until you get it perfect, okay? So here we go. Number 49, Mix It Up, number 2. 1, 2, 3, go. And 1 and 2 E and 3 E and a 4 and 1 E and a 2 and 3 and a 4 and crash. All right, very good. Next, lesson number 8 we're going to be on. It's called Connecting the Dots. And basically what this is about is when you have notes, sometimes you want to make the note a little bit longer. Now, not so much for the reader but for the writer, you're going to want to use this little trick. And what it is by when you add a dot to a note, let's say, for instance, we have a quarter note. Well, we know a quarter note equals 2 8th notes. And even in fractions and mathematics, 2 8ths equal a quarter. So what the dot does, it actually takes one more half, or it makes one more half added to those 2 8th notes. So you get like 2 8th notes plus 1 8th note, and you end up getting 3 8th notes. So that's the length of the note by adding the dot to a quarter note. So that sometimes they call it a dotted quarter note, okay? If we added it to an 8th note, well, we know that 8th notes, there's 2 16ths in every 8th, because we talked about that just recently. And the 2 16th notes for every 8th note, plus the dot would actually equal one more 16th note, and that would make 3 16th notes for every dotted 8th. Okay. So again, this is more for the writer than it is for the reader. So we're going to be reading this stuff, and I want to make sure you guys understand what dotted notes are all about, okay? All right, so let's get started. So it's ride cymbal, snare drum, and bass, and I'm going to be playing 8th notes on the ride cymbal, and the snare and bass will play different various notes. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, go. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4. All right. Next, dot this number 2. Now we're going to be playing 16th notes. And here's an interesting thing. The 16th notes are playing on the hi-hat this time. But remember, we played the hi-hats, we played right, left, right, left. Well, you can always tell whether it's playing with one hand or two simply by whether there's a snare drum with the hi-hat. If there's one where you see the 16th note hitting and then on beat 2 you see the snare drum but no hi-hat, that's where you play actually 2 hands. In this particular example, we're playing it with one hand because the hi-hat and snare hit together on 2 and 4. So let's start this off, and this one has the double bar, double dot, which means as soon as you see that at the end, you're going to repeat the line twice, and then we'll crash. Okay, this one's called 51, dot this number 2. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2, a 3 E and a 4 E and a crash. All right. Pretty interesting. Again, these patterns are getting more interesting because of the way the notes are played, 16th notes. The last exercise on this for lesson 8 is 52. It's called dot this number 3. And we're going to be playing 8th notes still on the hi-hat, But again, there's going to be the dotted notes, and you have to watch because there's going to be dotted eighth notes and dotted quarter notes on this. So take it slow. So it's going to sound like this. 1 and 2, ready, go. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 and 3 E and a 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 and 3 E and a 4 and crash. All right, we are moving along. We're on page 25. Now we're going to be going to page 26. Now on 26, they're going to be talking about a special little sign, and what this is, it's a little 2 with 2 slash marks and 2 dots. And what that'll represent is that as soon as you see the first 2 measures of the line, you're going to see that little symbol, and that's going to tell you to go back and play those same 2 measures again. And again, this is an abbreviation for the writer, so that the writer doesn't have to write out 4 measures. He just has to really write out only 2 measures, and then the other 2 just put that little sign, and it tells him to go back again. So very easy to do, again, but at least that way we know how to read it. And let's give it a try. Let's hear what this sounds like. So 1 and 2 and ready, go. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Repeat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and stop. All right, now, as you can see, the second line just below that one is the exact same exercise. They just wrote it out. So the first line they wrote with 2 measures and that little symbol for the 2 measure repeat symbol. And then the line below it is just, they wrote out all 4 of them. Exactly the same thing. So we're not going to go over that exercise because I just played it, and that's basically what it does. Now, the next one, they're going to give you 3 different exercises here on this one. This is 53, called double and up. And again, we're going to be using that 2 measure repeat sign to go back over the first 2 measures of each one of these lines. So the first one starts off with quarter notes on the hi-hat. Let's give that a try. 1, 2, ready, go. And 1 E and a 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 E and a 4. Again, 1 E and a 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 E and a 4. All right. Next, the line is going to be playing 8th notes with the ride cymbal, and then we'll be playing the snare drum and the bass drum. Again, using the 2 measure repeat. Here we go. 1, 2, and ready, go. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right, line 3. Now we're going to be playing the 16th notes, and guess what? We're going to be using both hands on the hi-hat, because where the snare drum is, there's no hi-hat, and when there's no hi-hat with the snare, that means we have to play with both hands. So let's give this a try. 1, 2, and ready, go. And 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and again 1 E and 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a crash. All right, pretty easy to do. All right, next, we're going to be getting into this next chapter pretty soon, but before we do, we have to understand there's different types of 16th notes. Now, what I mean by 16th notes in different types is that there's different variations of how they use the 16th notes in a rhythm. So say, for instance, okay, every 16th notes that we have in a beat, let's say in the first beat, is going to be 4 16ths, so 1 E and a, right? Well, you can take notes out and still make it 1 E and a, but you don't play on every single one of them. And there's a lot of different variations of those. You can add 2, you can have just 1, you can add 3, or you can just leave it as having 4 of them. And each one of those is going to have a different sound to it. And the way I usually tell my drum students when I teach is that it's a different kind of a shape to it. And after a while, you'll get used to looking at the shapes of the 16th notes, and sometimes they're with other notes, and it's going to be very easy for you to know it as a shape and get that counting down, so that once you understand those counts, you'll be able to play it just by looking at it from the shape. It's that easy. And so this makes it real easy and understandable if you think of it as a shape, and as soon as you think of that shape, it plays that particular rhythm, okay? So this exercise basically is called 54 Sticking to It number 1. It's on page 27. What it's entailing, it's all just snare drum and bass drum on all 4. So it's going to give you a feel of what 16th notes are like. Now, once we get those done and you understand all the different types of 16th note variations, then we can add those to the whole drum set with the toms, cymbals, or what have you, okay? Cowbell, you know, you could add other things, tambourine down the road. Whatever you want to add to your drum set, we can do totally different things with 16th notes. It's really fun. All right, so I'm going to start this one off. Now, this actually has different rights and left patterns on there, and it's very important to follow those rights and lefts because it's the easiest way to play them, and it doesn't get you hung up with the different variations of the 16ths. So let's get this started, and again, this is a longer one. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines. So I'm going to keep going all the way through it. I'm going to play it slow, but once you get it, you're going to understand how things go, okay? So here's the different 16th notes with the bass drum on all 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and a 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and a 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and a 4, and 1, and a 2, and 3, and a 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and a 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, E, and a 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, E, and a 2, E, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, E, 3, E, and 4, and a 1, and 2, and a 3, and 4, and a 1, and 2, E, and a 3, and 4, E, and a 1, and 2, E, and 3, and a 4. 1 and 2, E and a 3 and 4. 1 and a 2, 3 and a 4. 1 and 2, E and a 3, 4 and 1 and 2, E and 3, E and a 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 E and a 2, E and a 3, E and a 4, E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 E and a 4. 1 E and a 2 and 3 E and a 4. 1 E and a 2 and a 3 E and 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 and 3 E and 4. 1 and a 2 and 3, 4. Okay. As you can see, all those are totally different 16th note patterns, and you can see how they sound together, and they sound really cool. It almost sounds like a marching kind of a, cadence or something like that from a marching band or, DCI stuff. Now, that is actually the end of the chapter 8. We're going to be starting on lesson 9 on the next show. So don't forget, keep watch of this show. I really appreciate all of you guys out there. If you haven't got the book yet, you can get it on Amazon, or you can get it at a music store. Again, it's called Drums 1. It's by Fast Track. It's put out by HAL LEONARD. And usually the book's about $8 or $9. It's really cool. I urge you to get it. It's really fun to get into. And if you have a drum set at home, you're already set then. If you have an electronic drum set, you can still do the same thing with the electronic set. Now, in the last couple episodes, just before we go, I wanted to tell you that I had an electronic drum set that I kind of put together, and I explained that on the last couple of shows. Notice I don't have the electronic set right now. Now, this particular set is called a trap set. It comes from England, and they made it for just the rims. If you notice, the drums don't have any shells. They're all made of just the rim, and they have the drum head. and they have a little plastic piece which kind of acts as the drum shell, so it can screw in to the plastic piece right here and then tighten down the drum head. So each one of these, the snare drum, the bass drum, all the toms have that same technology, and they all hook to this rack mount system. It came built in with these two boom stands. I had to buy another separate stand because I needed the ride cymbal, so that was one thing. I mean, if you wanted to, you could have this as a crash and this as a ride cymbal, and then you don't need another. But I like to have two crashes on my set, and the reason for that, you've probably seen during these exercises, is that I use these crash cymbals on different parts. If I'm on this side of the set and I need to go to a crash really quick, I can actually hit that crash right on this side. If I'm over here playing the hi-hat and I need to crash really quick again, I can do it this way. Or if you need to, you can cross over. But it's really nice to have two, and that way it helps kind of, it looks flashy, you know, it looks more interesting to the audience as well instead of just having one crash all the time. And it makes it easier for the drummer to have two crashes. So it's important. You don't need it right away, but later on down the road, you're definitely going to want to have two crashes. And this actually came with a hi-hat stand and the bass drum pedal. And I think the whole thing was like about $800. I know it's a little steep, but again, it's a very portable system, and the reason why I needed to use it was the electronic side wasn't jiving here with the studio. We couldn't get a really good sound with it. It was kind of faint in the background, and we tried the best we could, but I thought, well, this would be the next step. And I happened to have quite a few drum sets at home, and I figured, well, this would be the next one. I couldn't go with a full kit because it's too loud sometimes with this office building, the way we record things here. And so I wanted to just kind of use something that was less volume. And as you can see, it still sounds like a drum set. The only thing, it's just not a full-size kit. So again, if you're interested in something like this, they do sell these online. Again, it's called a trap kit. You can see it says traps. And again, remember that word trap was from the old word called contraption. And that's what they used to call a drum set back in the old days, back in the 1900s. The drum set was just getting invented because all they had was a snare drum and a bass drum. And it was really important to eventually, you know, put these things together, these drums and then cymbals, so that one man could play it instead of having multiple men play it. And it was a cool way, and, you know, 1950 came around, and here comes rock and roll, you know. It really fit into that lifestyle of playing that kind of music, you know, and it really helped out. And, of course, nowadays they've got every type of possible drum set you can come up with. There's new things that are coming out every day. Great companies out there that are building some really good sets, quality sets. And, of course, you know, the funny thing is that the more you spend, the better off you're going to have either a better kit or a better cymbal. So it definitely does do that. Unfortunately, it's expensive. You know, it's an expensive thing. Hopefully, you know, it's not just a hobby, but if it is a hobby, that's fine. You know, you can get something, you know, less expensive and kind of have fun at home with it. Again, the whole thing of playing an instrument is to have fun. That's why we're doing this, and that's why it's so important, you know, to get that, you know, practice in, that practice time that you need at home, and just get yourself motivated to keep doing this, because eventually it's going to pay off. You'll be able to maybe join a band or something like that down the road. And I'm telling you, over the years I've played, since I've been playing for 40 years, I've just had a blast, and I've learned a lot, and I'm still learning. I'm a teacher. I've been teaching for 40 years and just been having a blast doing it. Okay, well, that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop me a line at my email address, joedrums1, that's the number 1, at comcast.net. And again, if you have any questions, just feel free to drop me a line. I'll try to answer it as best I can. Until then, you guys take care. This is Joe signing off. We'll see you on the next Joe Drum Shop. Until then, keep rocking.